Welcome to Movie Recall. In today's video, we will be going through the 2022 movie The School for Good and Evil. It's time to recall. Let's get started, turn on subtitles, and spoilers ahead. The movie begins and we get to know that two brothers had established schools for good and evil to strike a balance between the two powers in the world. And this had proved successful as well, and they had shared this power for eons. However, we see two men fighting each other. We soon find out that they are the twin brothers named Rian and Rafael who are practicing. Rian is not happy with Rafael's use of magic in their fight, and Rafael convinces his brother for another round and asks him to use magic as well. They begin fighting again and the two are well matched until Rafael uses blood magic, which is highly dangerous for the one being attacked, along with the one yielding the magic. The fight ends with Rian climbing up the edge of the cliff to see his brother lying dead far below him. The scene shifts to many years later and far away in the town of Gavaldon, where a young girl named Sophie is dreaming about being a princess when she is rudely taken out of her dream by her stepmother waking her up. On the other hand, Agatha plays with her cat and later goes out to help her mother. As Agatha is walking to school, she is called names by other children in their town who call her a witch. Sophie arrives and accompanies Agatha on her way, showing that the two of them are outcasts and the best of friends. Agatha had befriended a bereaved Sophie who had been grieving the death of her mother, even engraving their names on the trunk of a supposed magical tree. We next see Sophie and Agatha having lunch and talking about what they will do after school when a man walks up to Agatha and begins to scare and threaten her, saying that they burn witches alive. Sophie knocks him out and the two girls run into a bookshop, finding refuge there. The bookseller gives Sophie books on fairy tales while Agatha prefers ghost stories. They are avid readers, as that is the only way for them to escape the clutches of their town. That day, Sophie comes across an intriguing logo which says SGE. The bookseller explains that this is the logo for the School of Good and Evil, a legendary and mythical school that teaches the art of good and evil to its students, and it is where these stories are written. Sophie is immediately entranced with the idea, while the skeptical and reasonable Agatha finds the idea ridiculous. The bookseller also tells them about a girl named Lenora who was taken to the school from their town nearly 20 years ago and has never been heard from since. Smitten by the idea, Sophie writes a letter addressed to the school and leaves it in the magical tree in hopes of being accepted. We see that a smoky creature with glowing eyes is observing her. Later, Sophie is seen telling Agatha about her troubles with her family and her stepmother. She wants to leave the town, but Agatha makes her promise that she won't leave her alone. But later that night, Sophie attempts to run away, but Agatha intercepts her. Suddenly, Sophie is attacked and dragged away by the smoke-type creature we saw earlier as Agatha tries to stop it. The two of them are dropped on the ground, but before they can get their bearings, a huge skeletal bird grabs both of them. And so the two friends are flown to the land where the School for Good and Evil exists. But surprisingly, Agatha is dropped into the School for Good, while Sophie is dropped off at the School for Evil. There, Sophie sees other students too as the wolf-headed guards usher the students inside. Once inside, Sophie sees the other kids, who look every bit as evil as students of an evil school should. Sophie also meets the dean, Lady Lesso. When Sophie speaks up that there's been a mistake with her admission, the dean assures her that she is in the correct school. On the other hand, Agatha wakes up in a garden and is escorted by fairies. Inside, she meets the good school's dean, Professor Dovey. Agatha tells her that Sophie should be the one here, but Dovey tells her that Agatha always wants what is good for everyone else while not caring about herself, whereas Sophie is never content with what she has and always strives for more. She assures Agatha about the goodness inside her, at which Agatha scoffs. Dovey then helps Agatha dress up for the welcoming ceremony. At the ceremony, Agatha is dressed up in a floral gown while Sophie is dressed in a drab garb. Both deans give a speech and they are joined by the headmaster of the school, Rian. There is a performance by the boys of the School of Good, as a student named Tedros stands out, who is a popular kid and also the son of King Arthur. Both Sophie and Agatha again protest their being here, and the headmaster tells them that they never make a mistake. Later that night, Agatha sneaks out of the school to go meet Sophie, but she is pursued by a creature who tells her that the students are not allowed to visit the other school. Agatha runs from it and ends up hiding in the library. There, she overhears Lesso and Dovey conversing about Agatha and Sophie. They are skeptical about the girls' placements, even thinking that neither of the girls deserves to be here. After they leave, the library is overcome by a red haze and Rafael appears in a flood of blood. He talks to Agatha and tells her to stay away from Sophie. Agatha immediately goes to find Sophie and together they go to visit the headmaster of the school to make their case, because knocking on the headmaster's door in the middle of the night sounds like a great idea. When they make it inside, they see a giant book in which everything that happens is being recorded. The headmaster appears and Agatha tells him about what she saw in the library. He tells her that a lot of spirits roam the school. Sophie makes her case about being admitted to the wrong school, and he tells her that if she can kiss her true love, she will prove to him that she belongs to the school of good. Sophie decides on courting Tedros and enlists Agatha's help, who agrees. The two of them wake up in their respective rooms where they are outcast by their classmates for being different. Sophie's class on looking evil doesn't go well, as her teacher dunks her face in dirty water, telling her that looking ugly is freeing. Agatha attends the beautification class, where her teacher instructs her students to smile, but Agatha fails miserably. During lunch, Sophie and Agatha swap stories and plan on how to approach Tedros. Sophie asks Agatha to hand him a letter from her. Later at a class that Agatha attends with Tedros, he comes up to talk to her and is nice towards her. She also hands him the letter given to her by Sophie and vouches for her friend. They then go on to attend a class in the forest, where one of the students fails the class and vanishes in a dark cloud. Agatha is disturbed to see this. We then shift to a Nevers class where Lady Lesso is teaching a lesson on animalistic abilities inside each individual. Various students demonstrate their powers as Sophie says that she can't. One of the girls taunts Sophie and, provoked, Sophie seemingly unleashes a wasp swarm. Lady Lesso thinks this is a sign of Sophie's special abilities. We then shift to Agatha, who is attending class with Professor Dovey. Dovey explains how the students who fail thrice get turned into a creature, which is what happened to Gregor. Agatha feels this is unnecessarily cruel and unfair. They then partake in an activity where a creature in the lake shows people their wishes. Tedros' girlfriend sees herself with him, but Agatha wishes that whoever wishes to go home should be able to. This frees the school of wish fish trapped in the lake, which is revealed to have been a student from 100 years ago who failed. Soon after, a stimp flies in and approaches Agatha. As the other students flee, she recognizes the creature to be a transformed Gregor. Tedros intervenes and unknowingly kills Gregor with Excalibur, and Agatha lashes out at him and Dovey. When Agatha maintains that she does not belong at the school of good and evil, Dovey argues that her selfless, empathetic personality makes her the first true princess in a long time. Later on, Sophie and Agatha meet up and Sophie tells her that she just saw Rafal. Tedros comes up to them and appreciates Sophie's letter. Just then, Sophie is taken away by a guard for talking to a student of the good school. She is chained in a dungeon-like room where Lady Lesso comes in and tells her that the manifestation of Rafal means that Sophie is chosen by him and hence is special. She doesn't want Sophie to mingle with Agatha and the others and to break her spirit, cutting off her long golden locks. Meanwhile, Agatha tells Tedros that he should not have killed Gregor, while he defends himself by saying that it's his job to do princely things and save princesses. Sophie gets another visit from Rafal, who fills her mind with honeyed words about her potential to change the world and tells her to push every limit to win Tedros' heart. Some days later, there is an event going on where the students' internal powers are going to be awakened. There, Tedros once again approaches Agatha and apologizes to her. As the ceremony gets going, Sophie makes her entrance in her new look. She keeps an eye on Tedros and seemingly follows him around, making her presence known to him. She also gains the approval and loyalty of the other Nevers, forming a clique. One day, Agatha tells Sophie that Tedros does not believe in outward beauty, as his father had been betrayed by a seemingly beautiful woman. She tells her friend to be good so that she can win the prince's heart and they can go home. But Sophie does not want to do so. She only wishes to change schools. She asks for Agatha's help. Sophie ends up going to Ted while he is shooting arrows for practice and takes his bow from him. She says that good people cannot take a good shot because their mind is never at peace, but Sophie insists that she is good and has ended up in the school for evil due to a mistake. She proves this by shooting a perfect shot, but is actually helped by Agatha, who uses her magic. The prince is impressed by this, and soon the two of them begin hanging out. This causes disapproval in both the Evers and Nevers, with Ted's girlfriend lashing out at him, which causes a fight to break out. The two deans intervene and a meeting is called. Here, the headmaster claims that if Ted and Sophie truly love each other, they must prove themselves by going through trial by tale. They will have to find each other in the forest and leave safely. The trial begins and Sophie finds herself attacked by various creatures until Agatha arrives to help her out. Ted also arrives and saves Sophie from a scarecrow. Sophie then tells him that a prince's job is to save princesses, which makes Ted see the true side of her and drops a red handkerchief on the ground, which signals him stepping out of the trial. Sophie lashes out at Agatha and leaves. Agatha sees Rafal in the forest and goes to see Professor Dovey. She explains seeing Rafal and how she suspects he has been corrupting Sophie's mind and that Lesso might also be in on it. Meanwhile, Raphael visits Sophie once more and tells her that Ted was never good enough for her. He convinces her that Agatha is her enemy, and Sophie accepts his offer to receive blood magic from him. The other teachers confront Lesso, and Agatha asks her why Raphael is after Sophie. The headmaster arrives and tells them that Sophie is gone, and if Raphael is resurrected, he will kill them all. Lesso finds Sophie, and we see that Sophie is slowly transforming, her features turning ugly. Lesso realizes that Sophie has been using blood magic. Sophie then confronts Lesso by saying that the girl taken from Galvadon was Lesso herself, and she was chosen for Raphael. Sophie then confronts Lesso by saying that the girl taken from Gavaldon was Lesso herself, and she was chosen for Raphael, but had not been able to prove her loyalty to him. Sophie says that she will prove herself to Raphael, whereas Lesso had failed to do so. Dovey arrives and starts using blood magic. Sophie incapacitates the entire staff by turning them into dolls. We then shift to a ball taking place at the school for good. Tetros tells Agatha to rethink her friendship with Sophie, who he has always seen shouting at Agatha and blaming her for her own problems. Agatha counters this by saying that Sophie has a good heart and that back home, when everyone else shunned her by calling her a witch, Sophie had been the only one who was nice to her. Agatha looks at Sophie like a sister. Ted is floored by how good of a person Agatha is and professes his love for her. Just then, Sophie crashes the Evers ball, now almost turned into a hag. There she provokes Ted badly enough that he and the other Evers get ready to attack the Nevers. As the Evers rush across the bridge, Agatha tries to stop them, but they don't listen. She flies to the school for evil, where Sophie's transformation has now been completed. The Evers attack, and this breaks the law that good defends and evil attacks. Thus, the Evers transform into Nevers and Nevers transform into Evers. Sophie's beauty is restored, and a fierce battle breaks out between the two schools. Agatha tries to talk to Sophie, but Sophie traps Agatha and, turning into a bird, flies to the headmaster's office. There she instead finds Raphael. He reveals that Ryan had died during a fight, and Raphael had pretended to be his brother to undermine the school for good while favoring the school for evil. He then proposes a union to Sophie to rule together and forever, declaring her his true love. As they kiss, both schools begin to collapse, horrifying Sophie, who wanted to rule over evil and did not want this. As she realizes her mistake, Agatha arrives. Raphael throws the Storian at Agatha, but Sophie jumps in front of her. This sacrifice unravels Raphael's spell, and the order is restored. As Ted arrives in the tower as well, Agatha, with Sophie's help, uses Excalibur to kill Raphael. As Sophie dies in Agatha's arms, she kisses Sophie goodbye. This, in turn, brings Sophie back to life, as their kiss proved to be a demonstration of true love. With the Evers and Nevers having reconciled and the school staff restored, a portal to Gavaldon opens. Agatha kisses Tedros before crossing over with Sophie, returning to their old lives. The film ends with an arrow piercing the veil between worlds, followed by a mysterious knife, with Tedros' voice pleading he needs Agatha. The Storian then states that this is only the beginning. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, and click the bell icon to get new movie recaps.